In 1980s cinema, a specific type of villain reigned supreme. He was massive, relentlessly loud, and entirely designed to make audiences feel a visceral sense of physical terror. No one embodied that imposing archetype quite like Donald Gibb. When he stepped into the role of Frederick Ogre Pulaski in Revenge of the Nerds, he cemented his status as the definitive cinematic bully. He quickly carried that raw aggression over into underground action films. As Ray Jackson in Bloodsport, Gibb anchored an intensely combative martial arts universe. His entire early presence on screen was carefully constructed. He built a career presenting the pure illusion of violence, fear, and unbroken physical dominance. Which is why the news from his family hit the public so hard. Donald Gibb recently passed away at the age of 71 after a battle with ongoing health complications. Almost immediately, social media platforms filled with thousands of tributes. Fans shared stories of meeting him at conventions or on the street, describing a man who was surprisingly humble, warm, and remarkably patient with every stranger who approached him. It presents a fascinating contradiction. The man hired to be Hollywood's most terrifying antagonist somehow leaves a legacy as one of its most beloved and warm-hearted figures. To understand how that happened, you have to look at the rigid systems of Los Angeles. Early casting decisions rarely consider an actor's emotional range. Instead, studios rely heavily on immediate physical geometry. Gibb was born in New York City and spent his early years focused entirely on sports. His 6-foot-plus frame and background in collegiate and professional football perfectly fit the industry's constant need for massive human walls. By the early 1980s, directors utilized him exactly as you'd expect. He landed parts acting as generic, imposing muscle in major dictated entirely by his unchangeable, towering stature. It was the purest form of Hollywood typecasting. The turning point arrived in 1984 when he was cast as Frederick Ogre Pulaski. On the page, the script's intention was completely straightforward. Ogre was written to act as a simple, one-dimensional obstacle for the nerdy protagonists to overcome. But Gibb actively subverted the written dialogue. He took the aggressive intimidation required for the role and injected an over-the-top, deeply comedic energy into his performance. That comedic choice forced a complete narrative shift. Audiences connected so strongly with his hilarious delivery that writers had to bring the character back as a staple for multiple sequels. The specific, undeniable charisma he developed in Revenge of the Nerds proved he was highly adaptable, unlocking a sprawling career that spanned decades and genres. He soon dominated television screens throughout the 80s and 90s. He made memorable, recurring appearances on massive network hits like Seinfeld, Cheers, and HBO's football comedy First and 10. In nearly every appearance, he managed to steal scenes directly from established leading men, relying entirely on his overwhelming personality and screen presence. This is the exact definition of a working character actor. He was the vital supporting player who rarely saw top billing, yet served as the unforgettable lifeblood of the fictional universe. Yet the illusion he projected on set ended the moment the camera stopped rolling. Over the years, fan encounters shared on forums like Reddit painted a starkly different picture. People who met him in public consistently described a man who was surprisingly humble, intensely warm, and remarkably generous with his time. That gentle nature stood in sharp relief against his chaotic, violent on-screen battles. In the end, he passed away peacefully, surrounded by his family at his home in Texas. Gibb built a legacy by keeping his terrifying professional toolkit strictly separate from his profoundly gentle personal life. Today, streaming platforms act as a permanent archive for 1980s cult cinema, allowing these films to reach new audiences decades after their initial release. Character actors like Gibb are uniquely benefiting from this technological shift, with their iconic moments being discovered by entirely new generations of viewers every single year. His decades on screen show that a career spent playing brutes and bullies can still result in a legacy defined by warmth and genuine human connection. Rest in peace to Donald Gibb, a genuine titan of cult entertainment. What is your favorite Ogre memory or your favorite role from Donald Gibb's long career? Let us know.